The United States Coast Guard issues an urgent alert on New Year's Eve, their voices cutting through the air with an edge of dread. All vessels in the vicinity are requested to maintain a sharp lookout if possible, because there are reports that the fishing vessel Scandies Rose has gone down and is missing. The details are fragmented, filled with uncertainty. No one knows if the crew managed to get into their survival suits. No one knows if they are still on board. No one knows if they made it into the water. There is only silence where voices should be, only questions where answers should live. The chilling message sends a ripple of fear across the Bering Sea, the kind of fear that only those who live and work on the unforgiving waters can truly understand. The Scandies Rose was more than just a boat. It was a home, a workplace, and a lifeline for the men aboard. When word spread that it was in trouble, hearts sank across the fishing community. Families waited in agony, hoping for a miracle but bracing for the worst. The Bering Sea is a place where nature's fury rules with no compromise, where towering waves and freezing winds test the very limits of human endurance. For decades, fishermen have set out on these treacherous waters, knowing the risks, chasing the promise of a catch that can mean survival for their families. But the sea does not care about promises. It does not care about courage. It takes what it wants when it wants without hesitation. On that grim night, as the Scandies Rose slipped into silence, the Coast Guard scrambled resources, launching a desperate search through the blackness. The conditions were brutal. Howling winds, bitter cold, snow whipping across the decks of rescue helicopters and cutters alike. Every second mattered because in water that cold, human life is measured not in hours but in minutes. The fishermen's best defense, their survival suits, could buy them precious time, but even those are not guarantees. Against 30-foot seas and temperatures well below freezing, survival is a race against inevitability. The men aboard the Scandies Rose were no strangers to risk. They knew the sea's temperament better than most. Each of them had stories of close calls, of storms weathered, of nights when they questioned whether they would ever see the sunrise again. But none of that could prepare them for the nightmare that unfolded that night. The vessel's mayday went out too late. The icy waters swallowed the ship quickly, leaving little chance for escape. Families on shore clung to their phones, hoping for word. Mothers, fathers, wives, and children prayed for news that their loved ones had been found, clinging desperately to that fragile strand of hope. But as the hours stretched on, hope dimmed. For every fisherman lost at sea, there are ripples that travel far beyond the water. Communities are left hollowed. Families are left with empty chairs at the dinner table, voices that will never again echo in the halls of their homes. The tragedy of the Scandies Rose was not just a single event. It was part of a brutal pattern, a reminder of just how perilous the life of a fisherman truly is. The Bering Sea is often called one of the most dangerous workplaces on Earth, and for good reason. Its icy grip has claimed countless lives, swallowing ships whole and scattering crews across unforgiving waves. The show Deadliest has long captured this reality for millions of viewers, offering an unfiltered look at the daily fight for survival. But behind every dramatic scene on television lies a harsher truth, that these dangers are not just for cameras. They are the everyday reality of those who risk it all for crab, for livelihood, for survival. The loss of the Scandies Rose shook even the most hardened captains. Men who had spent their entire lives at sea were reminded that no experience, no strength, and no preparation can ever fully protect against the sea's wrath. Among the community, the grief was palpable. These men are not just co-workers. They are brothers, bound together by shared battles against the storm. To lose one of their own is to lose a part of themselves. The Coast Guard's search was relentless, but in the end, the sea gave back only fragments of what it had taken. Survivors were few. The stories they told painted a picture of chaos and desperation, of a vessel overwhelmed in minutes, of men fighting to breathe in waters that froze their strength almost instantly. Those who lived did so not because they were stronger or braver, but because of luck and the small margins that separate life from death in the Bering Sea. For the families who lost their loved ones, grief became a permanent companion. The sea does not return what it takes, and closure is often an impossible dream. Funerals were held without bodies. Memories became the only connection left. Wives faced raising children alone. Parents faced the unthinkable heartbreak of outliving their sons. The echoes of their absence continue to haunt docks, harbors, and the decks of other boats that set sail into the same merciless waters. Yet even in tragedy, the fishermen return. They go back to the sea because it is in their blood, because it is their way of life, because to them, not fishing is a fate worse than facing the storms. Every time a vessel leaves port, every time a crew loads their gear, the shadow of the Scandies Rose lingers. It is a reminder of what can happen, of what the sea demands, of the price that might be paid. The story of the Scandies Rose is not only about loss, it is also about resilience. It is about the men who face the sea again and again, not out of recklessness but out of necessity and duty. It is about the families who wait on shore, knowing the risks yet offering their support, their prayers, and their love. It is about the Coast Guard crews who push themselves into impossible conditions, driven by the hope that they might snatch someone from the jaws of the sea. This tragedy also reignited important questions about safety. Could more have been done? Were the conditions simply too overwhelming? Or were there warnings missed, precautions overlooked? In the unforgiving calculus of the Bering Sea, small mistakes can become fatal. Ice buildup, shifting weight, a sudden change in weather, all can turn a sturdy vessel into a sinking coffin within moments. Regulations have evolved, technology has advanced, but the fundamental truth remains. No man-made safeguard can ever make the sea safe. The Scandies Rose disaster has become a haunting chapter in the long history of maritime tragedies, a story that continues to echo through the halls of fishing communities and television screens alike. It is a story that forces us to confront the cost of the crab we eat, the hidden sacrifices behind the seafood that reaches our plates. Every bite carries with it the weight of men who brave the storms, and sometimes of those who do not return. As years pass, the memory of that night does not fade. It lives on in the stories told by survivors, in the tears shed by families, and in the hearts of every fisherman who still casts off into the unknown. The Scandies Rose will forever be more than just a ship. It will be a symbol of the price of life at sea, of the fine line between survival and tragedy, of the courage it takes to face the impossible every single day. The Bering Sea remains as it always has been, vast, cold, and merciless. Boats continue to set sail, crews continue to face the storms, and families continue to wait on shore. And though the sea will never reveal all its secrets, one truth is inescapable. It commands respect. Those who forget that truth pay the ultimate price. The Scandies Rose reminds us of this in the most painful way possible, carving its name into the legacy of the sea and the hearts of all who know what it means to risk everything against the ocean's might.